Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right in to decode the sometimes intimidating maze of corporate law jargon. We're going to see exactly how the law draws these invisible but absolutely crucial lines around money and organizations. Whether you're running a company yourself or you just love understanding how the financial world is wired, you're going to see how the exceptions to the rules are often just as important as the rules themselves. Let's get started.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with decoding corporate law jargon, move right into debentures, explore the commercial paper carve-out, define a body corporate, and finally, we'll wrap up with foreign entities versus cooperatives.
Section 1. Decoding corporate law jargon, the rules and exclusions.
You see, corporate law isn't just a rigid list of things companies can and can't do. It's fundamentally about setting boundaries. It dictates how businesses raise money and how they legally classify themselves. And these definitions really matter because they determine exactly which rulebook you have to follow. So I have a question for you. When is a company's debt not a debenture? If a company owes money and issues an instrument for it, you'd naturally assume standard corporate debt rules apply, right? Well, the law has some very specific boundaries that completely challenge our everyday assumptions.
Moving on to Section 2, Debentures, the company loan.
This is our first major concept straight from the Companies Act 2013, and honestly, it forms the bedrock for how corporations secure their funding. Under Section 230, a debenture is broadly defined as an instrument of a company evidencing a debt. This includes things like stock or bonds, and it applies regardless of whether it actually constitutes a charge on the company's assets. It's an incredibly inclusive legal definition. The lawmakers meant to throw a massive net over practically any security that represents what a company owes to its investors.
To make that dense legal phrasing a little more intuitive, just think of a debenture as simply a common loan owed by the company. That's really it. When a company issues a debenture, they are essentially taking out a loan from the public or a financial institution and handing over a formal IOU in return.
Section 3. The commercial paper carve-out.
Now, what's really interesting here is the twist. We just established that massive blanket rule, but these are the legal exceptions that poke holes right through it. The Companies Act explicitly steps back and excludes any instruments referred to in Chapter 3D of the Reserve Bank of India or RBI Act of 1934. It also leaves out any other instrument prescribed by the central government in consultation with the RBI. Basically, the Companies Act is literally letting the RBI take the wheel here.
So why write the law this way? Well, these specific instruments are carved out to avoid regulatory overlap and compliance clashes. It's all about preventing a massive regulatory turf war between the Companies Act and the Reserve Bank of India. Certain money market instruments are already strictly governed by the RBI. If the Companies Act tried to regulate them too, businesses would be absolutely crushed under conflicting rules.
Let's look at how this plays out in a real-world scenario by contrasting debentures with commercial papers. Let's say a company needs to raise short-term funds quickly, so they issue commercial papers. Because these specific instruments fall under Chapter 3D of the RBI Act, they are entirely governed by the RBI. So even though a commercial paper clearly represents a debt to the company, it is legally not classified as a debenture. This is a massive distinction. It allows the company to skip strict debenture issuance rules under the Companies Act, like the really heavy requirement of creating a debenture redemption reserve.
Section 4. Defining a body corporate.
All right, let's shift gears and open up a much bigger regulatory umbrella. Under Section 211 of the Companies Act, the definition of a body corporate or corporation explicitly includes a company incorporated outside India. It's a purposefully wide net that deliberately pulls in foreign entities. The logic here is actually pretty straightforward. The Act wants to ensure that foreign entities operating in India or holding relationships with Indian firms, like a holding subsidiary relationship, fall securely under necessary Indian regulatory compliance.
Let's ground this with a practical example. Take ABC Inc., a company incorporated over in the USA. Because of this specific legal phrasing, when ABC Inc. interacts with the Indian market, it is legally considered a body corporate in India. The law captures them to make absolutely sure they play by the right local regulatory rules.
And finally, Section 5, Foreign Entities versus Cooperatives.
We've just seen how foreign companies get pulled under this wide regulatory umbrella. But now, let's explore who is lucky enough to legally escape it. The Companies Act purposefully ignores specific entities.
The definition of a body corporate explicitly excludes a cooperative society registered under any law relating to cooperative societies. It also excludes any other notified body corporate that isn't already defined as a company by the central government.
And this brilliantly illustrates the philosophical core of corporate law. It really all boils down to one contrast: commercial profit versus mutual help. Foreign entities, like our example ABC Inc., operate for commercial profit. Therefore, they need strict corporate regulation. Local cooperatives, though, like Amul or local farmers' credit cooperative society, are formed with a motive of mutual help. They're already governed by their own specific state or central cooperative societies acts. Dragging them under the Companies Act would subject them to unnecessary and, frankly, completely inappropriate corporate compliances.
So, the crucial point is how these distinct rules apply in practice. Let's quickly trace it down. A commercial paper? Legally classified as not a debenture, because the governing reason is that it's already regulated by the RBI Act. ABC Inc., it is a body corporate because the law intentionally captures foreign companies to regulate them. And Amul, it is not a body corporate because its governing reason is mutual help, not commercial profit. These deliberate legal carve-outs keep exactly the right rules on exactly the right entities.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer. But before we go, I want to leave you with this final thought. If legal definitions are mostly about boundaries, what other daily business rules are shaped entirely by what they exclude? It really highlights the hidden power of legal carve-outs, doesn't it? The rules that don't apply are often just as critical as the rules that do. Keep that in the back of your mind the next time you're reviewing a contract or reading about a corporate restructuring. Thank you so much for joining me to decode these legal boundaries. And as always, stay curious